Hello and welcome to Alternate Image Raid. This is another Raid Shadow Legends video, and today we're going to talk about the new upcoming fusion, Maranix, and if you should go after this fusion. This one is labeled as being a fusion and not a fragment summon event. That means that this is going to have a bunch of champions you have to get from these events. You're going to have to collect 16 champions or possibly get a chance at one of the two epics, which generally will be hard to get if they even offer two of the epics. You fuse then those 16 rare champions into the 4 epic champions. You have to ascend them, level them up to level 40, ascend them to 4-star there, and then put those into those epic champions, level those up to 5-star level 50, fully ascend those in order to get this. Fusions tend to be a lot more resource intensive than fragment events because there's nothing to skip typically unless you're able to push for one of the epics directly, and you have to spend all those resources leveling up those champions that just become food. There may be some ways to double dip on that if you're able to level those up and ascend them during champion training tournaments, and that is definitely something to look at, but generally speaking, much harder on the resources overall. So this new champion, Maranix, is going to be a Dark Elf, of which we have way too many legendary Dark Elves already, so that is somewhat undesirable. It's not going to be as helpful for faction wars on a broad spectrum. Obviously, if you need a nuker for faction wars, that's different. And this champion is going to be kind of based around Hex. So let's switch over to the champion itself. The art is obviously always very cool. They usually do a good job with the art in this. Again, I don't like the Dark Elves. The force attack is actually not bad as an arena nuker. We do have relatively limited amounts of force nukers for the arena, so this could have some value there. Let's read over the kit real quick. So the A1, we have attacks one enemy 2 times, 50% chance of placing up to 2 extra hits if the target's under a hex debuff. The chance to place the extra hit is calculated individually, so each hit is 50%. You could land 1, 2, or none of them, depending on how that works. This is a pretty strong attack. Usually these A1s with, or actually any hits with conditional extra hits, tend to be pretty strong in damage. If the multipliers are good at all, that 4 hit could be really, really strong. 2 hit guaranteed is still pretty nice. The 4 won't see a lot of value in Fire Knight, which is what I was first thinking when I was first thinking 4 hits, because the boss has to be hexed first, and ideally the Fire Knight doesn't get to go again afterwards. A2 attacks all enemies, has a 75% chance, books up to 100 of placing a hex debuff and decrease debuff. That is great. Getting the hex out there on an AoE is solid. Getting the decreased defense out there on an AoE is a solid ability. So doing both is really nice. Of course, she does boost her own kit, which is awesome, and will further boost the kit of other champions using hex. That's a really solid A2. If again the multipliers are great, we're looking pretty good. It ends up being on a 3-turn cooldown when booked. Excellent. And then A3. Attacks all enemies, will ignore unkillable buffs and shield buffs if they are hex. Places unkillable buff on the champion if the attack kills an enemy without a hex. Places 2 turns of unkillable if they kill an enemy with a hex. That's just great. So she goes in, she gets that A2 off, hexes, decreased defense on the enemy, and then the A3 kills. Of course, in the arena, that means you're going to have to either get her going really quickly, turn meter increase or something, or CC the enemy team so they can't go. Typically, they don't get to go twice. Or she could just place those debuffs, and then you could have somebody come in, such as Rule the Huntsmaster. Let's see if I can find his ability for you that is important. Places an extra hit on enemies under a hex debuff, and ignores some percentage if there are 4 or more enemies under a hex debuff. So if she comes in, solid speed and accuracy, just lands these debuffs, he's going to go in there and just slap those enemy teams. This is a really strong ability. So this kind of kit is not bad whatsoever. And then we go on to her passive, which is resets the cooldown of that A3 whenever she kills an enemy under a hex debuff. So in a scenario in which she is doing all of the killing, she is the main damage dealer, that's going to be really solid because she's going to be able to keep going through. However, how many scenarios are there really going to be in which she is going to have chance to place A2, have a chance to place an or hit the A3 again to kill one but not all or most of the champions, and then need to go to an additional turn in order to get the passive and hit hit that A3 again. I don't know. There's not really a lot of scenarios that's going to happen. There might be some kind of value here in Doom Tower. The stats have to be really high since she's an attack-based champion, but Hex is really strong there. Maybe some combination with Mithrala in general. We'll see that Mithrala's passive, whenever this champion or an ally champion is attacked when they're under a Hex, it will petrify them, which is one of the craziest CCs in the entire game. It strips all their buffs off them and it stuns them for a turn. It's really, really good. So having more champions that are going to help champions like this go through, I don't know, pretty solid things to look at. But the kit is really strong, but it feels like it takes kind of too many turns in order to actually make use of most of that kit. So I don't know. I think it's really great. I think I'm going to go after it personally. Now, how about you? So this varies a lot based on your account. For me, I like to target my resources to guaranteed champions. So I will target my resources onto this champion in order to get her, to get this free legendary. It's going to be a strong legendary. And I say free in the sense that most of the resources I put in are going to go towards something that are going to get me something else. Everything I summon gets me a champion. Every dragon dungeon I run gets me a chance of gear, and so on. So I personally will go after this champion, despite the fact I don't necessarily need this kit or this nuker. I have somebody who places the Hex. I have Rule the Huntsmaster that uses the Hex damage. I think I have Thea the Tomb Angel, which is another one that does damage based on champions being under Hex. So I don't need it, but if you can, the guaranteed legendary is nice. It does enable you to build them into specific ways so that they can focus on the unique type of content that you're trying to use that champion in. However, this is going to take a lot of resources. This will be harder than the average Fragment Summon event. Not as hard as the Fragment Fusion. Those are worse. So when you're considering going after this, decide, do you have resources prepared for it? Will you be able to go after it without it hurting your account? Generally speaking, if you can get it, I recommend getting it. Guaranteed legendaries are the best thing you can get in this game because there's very little else you can get that's guaranteed. There's not a lot of guaranteed legendaries. There's Rosin, that fusion, and some login champs. I mean, like, so I recommend going after this champion if you are able. That means if you're in a position where you can comfortably farm stage 20 on the dragons, if you have a decent, sub 20 second at least farmer for your campaign, if you're in a position where you're able to complete all of these events, then it is a guaranteed champion. Now, there's only a couple more days till this launches. However, start getting a little bit into your potion keeps. If you need to, try to get some extra potions. I'm actually going to drop a link in the description. It is our actual written guide on our website, not a video guide yet, of how to prepare for fusion events. It is really good to give you an idea of where your account needs to be minimum and what resources you need going into it. It's a little bit older, but the fusion resource requirements are almost identical to when it was written. So definitely check out that link. And yeah, so go after this champion. I'm going to go after it. If you however, are a relatively new account, if you can't quite progress and get to the end of these tournaments and the end of these events, then don't feel too bad about missing out on this one. She is really good, but I don't think this is generally an account-changing champion. It's going to be a great nuker, but it isn't going to be someone that by themselves is going to overnight make your account something different. So if you can, go for it, but if you can't, don't be too upset. It's not that OP. So this has been an alternate image raid video. If you like hearing these kind of thoughts, let me know in the comment. Most of my stuff tends to be actual specific content guides, but if you like hearing my thoughts on champions or news or updates, feel free to let me know so that I know it makes any sense to do this for my audience. And if you liked it. If you really liked it, subbed. And if you disliked, smash the dislike button, as it's still engagement for the channel. And as always, have a great day.